I'll call the PAC meeting to order. Yes, we have a quorum. Seeing that this is the first meeting since the appointment of members to the Planning Advisory Committee, staff, I'm calling the meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. On our agenda this evening, the first order of business, I will call for the nomination of chair. So the committee members should have ballots. So this one is who you would like to nominate to be chair. I'll now read the nominations for chair. Councillor Moore. Councillor Bell. Member at Large Keith Drysdale. So we have three people nominated for chair. Keith, do you accept the nomination?
I prefer not to.
Prefer not to? Okay. Councillor Bell?
I respectfully decline, please.
Okay. And Councillor Moore, do you accept the nomination? All right, so we'll congratulate Councillor Moore as chair of PAC. I'll invite you to come up and call for the nomination of vice chair.
We will now have the nominations for vice chair. Do I read this? No.
Yes, you will.
So I'll need this, not just this.
You can just read this if you want.
Yeah.
That's all you need. And there's all of it on the back.
Yeah, but I don't have to do this one. Thanks.
All right, I'll read the nominations for vice chair. Councillor Bell. Member at Large Gary Mailman. Councillor Smith. So we have three nominations. Member at Large Gary Mailman, Councillor Bell, and Councillor Smith.
Councillor Smith, do you want to leave your name stand? Okay. Member at Large Gary Mailman, do you want to leave your name stand? Okay. Councillor Bell, do you want to leave your name stand?
No, thank you.
No, thank you? Okay. Councillor Smith, you are vice chair. All right.
Do a motion to destroy the...
And can I have a motion to destroy the ballots? Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Mailman. Sorry, someday maybe, 3 years. Member at Large Gary Mailman, All those in favor, do I need to say all those in favor of destroying, all those in favor of destroying the ballots? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is review of a procedure for public to address the committee. Procedure for addressing the committee. An opportunity will be provided to all citizens to address the committee on each agenda item shown on this agenda or added to the agenda by the committee. Individuals who wish to address the committee are asked to note the following. On each matter of the committee agenda, the chair will seek public comment upon the completion of staff presentation. Each person shall state their name. All statements and questions shall be directed to the chairperson. Presentations will be limited to 10 minutes. Persons wishing to address the committee a second time will be given the opportunity to do so once all others in attendance have had their opportunity to address the committee. Persons addressing the committee for the second time shall limit their presentation to 5 minutes. Anyone wishing to address the committee on a matter not included in this agenda item can have the matter added to the next agenda by contacting Jeff Merrill, Director of Planning. And right now, I will ask for an approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Smith, second by Councillor Bell. All those in favor? We have nobody on Teams, do we? Okay. And I will now ask for approval of the minutes of Thursday, April 24th. You guys have to pick between yourselves. Put your hand up, Keith. Keith Drysdale?
Yes.
Moved by Member at Large Drysdale and seconded by Member at Large Gary Melman. All those in favor? And no business arising from the minutes, so right now we're moving down to 6.1, Development Agreement Review for a proposed cluster development at 475 Upper Branch Road, Wallville. PID number 603-033-724 and 603-03781. And I will, I'll pass it over to Jeff first, Director of Planning.
On the agenda, I should have said it right away, there's one of the PIN numbers is wrong.
Oh,
Yeah, there's an extra number on the, it's correct in the package, but it's wrong on the agenda, the first one.
oh, I see, there's something, too many
Yeah.
numbers there.
All right, thank you. We'll
Yeah,
get that
we'll make
corrected.
those adjustments, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. We're going to have two presentations this evening, and then the committee can ask questions. Then the chair will open the floor to the audience if there's any feedback from the public. So the first presentation is from Rob LeBlanc from Fathom Studio, and he's the consultant on behalf of the applicant.
Here, and the mic's working, everything's good. Congratulations, new members of PAC, it's good to be here. My name's Rob LeBlanc, I'm with Fathom Studio. I'm a planner and landscape architect and director of planning division out of Dartmouth. I'm here tonight to speak to you about 475 Upper Branch Road, a development plan that we're working on, and I'm going to leave it to staff to walk through the approval pathways and the administration of how this will move forward as a planning article. But I will give you a little bit of background about the project. We've been at this for a number of months now. There's a team of engineers, transportation engineers out of our office, but we've also teamed with Able Engineering, who's working on the site servicing and water services and hydro geotech work that's being done on the site. Back about a month ago, we held an open house where we had somewhere between 25 and 30 people show up. We had a number of open house boards The entire design team was there to answer questions for members of the public and able to explain the project, and Anna might be able to go into a little bit more detail about what some of the opportunities and concerns might have been from the residents, and we might have some here tonight too that can elaborate on that. But I thought I'd walk you through the current conditions. The site's really comprised of two PIDs, one at the entrance to the Upper Branch Road. Both PIDs comprise about 31 acres of land. And there's also frontage for a small piece on the Levi-Heb Road. And just looking at it from a macro scale, looking out at a 2-kilometer ring and a 4-kilometer ring, the site is really situated at the eastern edge of Bridgewater in the growing mixed residential and employment area, I should say, the western edge of town. It's roughly a 5-minute drive from the town of Bridgewater's main commercial corridor on LaHave Street, and which includes full-service grocery stores, Sobeys, pharmacies, Canadian Tire, Walmart. So we're relatively close by in terms of vehicle trips. It's also within easy walking distance of the Lunenburg County Lifestyle Center, which is the main recreation center for the community. And there's several schools and NSCC Lunenburg campus that are located in the town. Local transit connections nearby within 800 meters or so. And it's highly visible from the highway. So we're on the outer curve of that highway, which means that kind of northbound and southbound traffic will see this site, currently do see it. So we see the edge of that highway as a good opportunity for a highway commercial development, which is included in the plan. So altogether, we think the site is within a good walkable distance of many of the community amenities in Bridgewater, or of course have good access to the highway now with the new interchange, and overall a highly visible site and a good site for modal to have new development in. It's also large enough and with enough water capacity to be able to stand on its own as its own serviced site. So when we started the project, we commissioned a topographic survey and an environmental survey as well, which I'll walk through. But these on the left-hand side shows the one meter contour interval. So we've got a little bit of a mound, but the site generally drains down towards the highway to a low point here in the lighter tan color. And there's what looks to be a drumlin or kind of a hill-type formation in the bottom left-hand corner of the site. And when we look at sloping conditions, when you're doing development plans like this, ideally you're working on lands that are kind of less than 5% are the easiest to develop. You're not doing a whole lot of earth moving in those conditions. As you start to move into 15% slopes and less, you can still work with them, but it requires a little bit of earth moving. As you move over 30% and into the kind of 30% slopes, those become still developable, but much more expensive. You're into retaining walls, a lot of earthworks. So fortunately, we've got really quite a good site with excellent sloping conditions, excellent soil conditions, and not a whole lot of exposed bedrock. We hired a wetland biologist to go out on the site to do a terrestrial habitat survey, and the overall findings, there's 3 wetlands that have been identified on the site. Wetland 1 up in the top northern part of the site, which is about 2,000 square meters in size. No very sensitive flora or fauna were identified in that one. Wetland 2, which is part of a water course that runs through the site down to kind of the southern edge of the boundary of the site. And on that, they identified 2 black ash trees, which are, the province has recognized those trees as environmentally sensitive species. So we've got a 20-meter buffer around those to make sure that those are preserved on the plan. And there's a very small wetland down in the bottom corner, about 1,600 square meters in size. And the overall intent is to preserve a 20-meter boundary around the water course. And we're preserving most of the wetlands on site. We've got a small area. If you look at most sites, you look at a 20-meter boundary around the wetlands. And there's a small piece of this wetland in the north that we're proposing to have to relocate in order to provide emergency access to the Levi Heb Road. We've got lots of frontage, though, on a main street. There's, I believe, roughly 30 meters of frontage there, so that's more than you'd need for a traditional road right-of-way. So in terms of the concept plan that's developed, we've imagined a single cul-de-sac entry in the road. This could either be a public road or it could be a private road. I think the developer is fine either way that the municipality wants to work. All of the infrastructure, of course, would be paid for by the developer. And we see a number of development sites. We're looking at the opportunity for some housing that might be for sale. So we've introduced some stacked townhouse units, 12 townhouse units that could be freehold sale at some point in the future through condo. The entire parcel of land will have to be treated as a bare land condominium because of the provincial requirements for septic systems. They all have to be on the same property, so that means that it would be through bare land condo. It does mean we've got room here for 3 multi-unit buildings. What they were shown on the plan are 2-story buildings, though, but we did note in the boards that went public and in our previous reporting that if there was enough water capacity for a 3rd story of buildings, that we would have a unit count that would go from roughly 96 units on the low end to 140 units on the high end. And fortunately this week we just got the water results back. They've been out on site doing drilling on site, and there's certainly enough capacity. There's well over 30 gallons a minute here now, which is enough capacity for the high end of the 140 units. So in that case, we had imagined that these multi-unit buildings would go up to the 3rd story in height, and so it looks like there's capacity for that. There's certainly enough site here for parking for those 140 units. Would be a combination of some underground parking and some surface parking as well. So all of the sites will have access to this cul-de-sac, and we think there's an opportunity as well for roughly 5,000 square meter highway commercial type development. So it could be anything from a car dealership or a hotel, any of those type of kind of highway commercial uses that would benefit from that high visibility that you have on this site. We're showing on the plan as well, so the 20-meter buffer is shown. We're preserving a significant amount of vegetation in this plan. The 2 black ash trees are shown on the plan. We've been working with our engineers to identify stormwater management areas. So these blue areas are low-lying areas that we'd be able to do surface drainage, so from the parking lots, to ensure that the pre and post peak after developments is maintained. So that means that we look at the hydrology of the site, how much water is currently coming off the site and in what locations, and then we design the site to maintain the 10-year peak runoff capacity that exists today by capturing any stormwater runoff from these hard impervious surfaces into these ponds where they're stored, and held before they're allowed to run off. So that ensures that you don't have any additional runoff going on to neighboring properties. We're fairly fortunate in this case, though. We've got kind of everything drains down towards the river and drains down to the south of the site. And over on the bottom left corner of the site, we've identified this area for the septic fields. We'll have a pumping system and a chambered system that will lift the septic. There'll be room enough, obviously, for storage, but it will be pumped up and through a drip system that will be part of a path network. So this won't be a clear cut. It'll be literally, you can imagine, a nice trail through the woods. The fields will be done underneath those trails in a lot of cases. We may have one kind of larger septic field that would be part of the plan. One of the benefits of the plan that we've identified is there's always the potential, should the municipality want to connect to roads in the southern part of the site, the developer was prepared to identify an area in the DA that could be handed over as an easement to the municipality, such that if this road ever wanted to be extended at some point in the future, the municipality would have the discretion of going forward with that as part of the DA. So we've done a number of renderings. So this is kind of an aerial rendering looking back. The highway is off in the distance, kind of Bridgewater off in the distance. We're showing a 3-story multi-unit building here in the foreground and some kind of highway commercial development shown as a 2-story, but these tend to be office-style developments. So the floor-to-floor heights, instead of a residential one, which is typically about 10 feet, these ones tend to be 14 or 15 feet. So 2 floors is roughly 30 feet high. But in all cases, we're under the typical height requirements in these rural zones, which is normally 35 feet. Another view kind of entering in facing the west on this site, looking at the residential building. So this would be the 2-3-story multi-unit buildings and the stacked townhouse units, the 12 units here that would front onto that cul-de-sac. And the main road would be out here on the right-hand side. And generally an aerial view, the main road out here on the side, the cul-de-sac coming into it. On the side just off the sheet here would be that highway commercial development, and then the trail system on that hill that runs across on the other side of the river. So our traffic engineers looked and completed a traffic impact study that looked at that. We were looking at the separation between the main road and this new cul-de-sac, and we've got a safe buffer factor, so that's going to work fine. It has ample access to the site from the Upper Branch Road and good connections into Bridgewater, and of course connections to the new interchange through the new highway that was just developed. There is posted speeds of 60 kilometers, changing to 50 kilometers as you get into town, and it's pretty much right at the proposed driveway site. And so we're saying as part of the plan to move that speed change just down to the east a little bit so that we're not changing speeds right at the location of this new intersection. I should also say in the plan, I didn't highlight that, is there's also an emergency access connection to the Levi Heb Road. And we had left it on there as a tentative thing that if we had been 2 stories in height, we likely wouldn't have required an emergency access road. Where we've got the 3rd story, we're just at the edge where we're going to need that emergency access. And so the intent would be, it would be a 4-meter wide asphalt pathway that would be cleared and maintained all through the winter. It would have a collapsible bollard at the entrance, so the intent is that people won't be using this regularly. But just in the case of an emergency, if there was ever a fire from the east side, you'd be able to exit through here, or if there was ever a blockage at the entrance here, 2 cars and an accident, the emergency vehicles would be able to get access into the site. So the trip generation, our traffic engineers use the latest ITE trip generation guide numbers. There's roughly, I believe it was 800 vehicles per day on that main road, so very low traffic volumes. The estimates for the new road that's been proposed is somewhere around 84 vehicle trips at the peak hour, and that's usually kind of a 2-hour period in the morning and a 2-hour period later in the day, starting at around 7:30, ending at around 9:30. So it's less than 50 vehicles per hour. So that's, when you look at that, it's less than a vehicle per minute exiting during peak hours. Transit, the bus runs hourly, and it's only about 850 meters away, so quite a walkable site in terms of potential transit access. There's currently no sidewalks along this portion of the Upper Branch Road, but we're proposing sidewalks on one side of the new cul-de-sac all the way up to the Upper Branch Road, so that if the municipality ever does do sidewalks in the future, we'll be able to tie into those as part of the development. And so in terms of the overall traffic analysis, no red flags have been identified by the traffic engineers. There's no traffic signals or extra turn lanes that are required with these volumes, so we don't have to do anything on the current road. The driveway location and design meets the safety standards with good sight lines, so we don't have to worry about that. The 50-kilometer speed zone is recommended past the new driveway, so we intend to just move that up a telephone pole to provide 50-kilometer speeds once you hit this area. And the project introduces new sidewalks out to the existing road for better potential future transit service into the development. Our environmental and civil engineer, I think he has COVID or something. He wasn't able. He sent us a note this afternoon. He wasn't able to attend. But this is a well-respected firm. They do a lot of civil and environmental engineering, and they ensure the regulatory compliance with the provincial Department of Environment, engineering and infrastructure standards, as well as environmental protection and municipal design requirements are all met. So that's all part of the engineering study that was provided accompanying the submission. So I think we're going to hand it over, and you'll talk about the pathways and where we've been and where we go from here.
Okay, Anna, our planner, go ahead. Thank you.
I'll be available to answer questions once the presentation's done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we are here tonight to discuss the development agreement for the proposed cluster development at 475 Upper Branch Road. So what I'm going to walk us through tonight is a bit about what is cluster development and a development agreement, just to give a refresher for everybody. I'm going to give some details about the proposed development and site details, go over the content of a development agreement, and then go into detail about the policy evaluation, including external agency feedback, as well as public input that was collected during the public information session.
Anna, I'm just
Yeah.
going to stop you a minute. We're having a little technical difficulty with our screens here. We all might have to turn and look up this way.
Can you see them over there?
We can only see the main screen.
Can you guys, is it on that screen over there? Okay.
Yeah, it's on
this
one.
It's on his.
Yeah. I
Oh.
don't know what's going on.
It's you guys.
The left side of the room, do you have it? And the right, yeah.
Maybe we, yeah, I don't know how to fix it.
We don't know how to fix it. Anybody with technology in this room? And, I mean, it's fine, because me and Martin can just turn and look up this way. It's not a problem.
This computer has it.
Yeah.
This screen has it.
Oop, something's happening. No, I think it's fine. You guys have your screens in front of you. You guys have it for you. We'll just look this way, okay? Thank you. Continue, Anna.
Thank you. All right, so just to finish up what we're going to talk about this evening, so we'll do the recommendation, and then I just have a brief slide on the development agreement process as well, and then we'll have a question period. So a cluster development is a type of residential development where several detached or multi-unit dwellings are located on the same property. The objective of these regulations is to ensure that new cluster developments follow standards that are appropriate to the size, configuration, and location of the proposed development. In MODL, cluster development is when 6 or more dwelling units are contained in 2 or more dwellings on a single lot. The regulations apply only to residential uses, not commercial or industrial uses. A development agreement allows for site-specific design control. It's a legal contract between a landowner and municipal council that controls various aspects of the DA. A DA cannot be approved by council until the public has been consulted, and council's decision to approve a development can be appealed. So before Rob gave a great overview of the proposed development, but I'll just go quickly over the section then. But just to start, the applicant is Fathom Studio and Ramey Investments. The location is 475 Upper Branch Road in Wildville. The scope of the project includes a cluster development with 96 residential units split between 3 two-story buildings with 84 units, as well as 12 stacked townhomes. The proposal also includes a 5,000 meter squared light industrial or commercial highway facility. And the site is currently unzoned, but must follow cluster development regulations. And it also must meet the municipality's municipal planning strategy sections 5.1, 5.2, and 6. Council must be satisfied with these policies, or the items can be conditions of the development agreement. And there's been a public information session which was held on November 19th, where 20 members of the public attended. So this is just the map showing some site features, which includes the 3 wetlands and 1 delineated water course that runs across the property, as well as 2 identified black ash trees. The approximate area of the site is 12.5 hectares or 31 acres. The site plan shows the proposed 9-meter wide main entrance road that fronts Upper Branch Road. It also shows the locations of the proposed one-way emergency egress that fronts Levi Heb Road. And the arrow in the south shows the future right-of-way extension to connect to Darius Weil Road. Here you can see the locations of the proposed residential multi-unit buildings and townhomes, as well as the highway-related industrial and commercial facility, and associated surface parking lots. The proposed septic field is located in the southwest portion of the site and includes walking trails. And the stormwater management area, which is not clear on the site, is located in the southeast portion behind the industrial facility. You can also see the locations of the proposed fire and stormwater management ponds. So this map just helps to provide a little bit more context of the area. So you can see the town limits with the town of Bridgewater, and you can also see that the town butts the Highway 103, and then Wiles Lake is also on the left-hand side there. So now to get into the content of a development agreement. So according to section 6.2 of the municipal planning strategy, council may specify certain conditions in the development agreement, which can include addressing elements such as street networks, site access, emergency evacuation routes, water and sewer services, and others which are all listed here. According to section 6.3, a DA will not be approved unless council is satisfied that the proposal is consistent with the intent of the municipal planning strategy. It does not conflict with other bylaws or regulations and is not premature or inappropriate due to elements such as drinking water, on-site water and sewage, traffic, etc. So in this case, drinking water is key here, as the development agreement will not go ahead until drinking water supplies are confirmed. Section 6.4 of the municipal planning strategy states that council may also require additional technical documents such as a detailed site plan, hydrogeological studies, environmental impact studies, and evaluations for emergency access. So now looking at policy evaluation. So first off, site access, street networks, and emergency evacuation. So planning staff have reviewed the development application, and as part of this review process, consulted with external agencies which provided comments on the development proposal. Based on this feedback and staff's review, certain items have been deemed either satisfied, pending, or conditional based on the policy criteria for the development agreement set out in the municipal planning strategy. So site access, street networks, and emergency evacuation. The proposed development is primary access road is 9 meters wide and fronts Upper Branch Road. There's also an emergency egress that fronts Levi Head Road. A future right-of-way is planned to connect with Darius Weil Road. However, this may be in conflict with provincial requirements regarding septic and subdivision. A transportation impact assessment was submitted by the applicant. However, Public Works stated that no additional traffic impact study is required due to the scale of the development. Public Works did recommend a truck turning analysis due to the potential for conflicts around the main entrance point. The department also indicated that traffic signs must meet their policies and a 10-meter setback from the Highway 103 must be maintained. This is considered a conditional item as a truck turning analysis may be necessary, and the proposed road entrances will require approval from the Department of Public Works. So in terms of water, a level 1 groundwater resource assessment has been completed, which confirms the water supply for 56 residential units. A level 2 water study is currently underway, and these results will determine and confirm the maximum water yield for the development. If groundwater levels permit, additional residential units may be added up to 140. The level 2 groundwater assessment is a pending item and will need to be completed before entering into the development agreement. So for sanitary, the development is planned to have an on-site septic system with underground septic tanks. The southwest portion of the site is reserved for the proposed treated wastewater dispersion area. And based on staff review, the 30-meter provincial setback for septic from wetlands and watercourses is met. However, approval from the Department of Environment and Climate Change is required for the final septic system design. Therefore, this is a conditional item. and access for emergency vehicles. So a 9-meter wide two-way Main Street road is proposed that ends in a cul-de-sac. This road is intended to facilitate emergency vehicle access and safe turnarounds. There is potential for left and right turning lanes to be incorporated into the design if necessary. However, there is a lack of direct access to the proposed industrial site for emergency vehicles, which makes this a conditional item. A stormwater management plan was submitted, and the plan includes a stormwater management area, street catch basins, manholes, water pipes, swales, and water retention ponds. However, the stormwater management plan will not be reviewed by the municipal engineering department until the plans are more finalized. The Department of Environment and Climate Change also indicated that drainage patterns will be altered and stormwater will impact some wetland areas. The Department of Environment and Climate Change also specified that stormwater must be diverted away from the existing wetlands, and the impacts on the wetlands from the stormwater plan are unknown. The stormwater management plan is a conditional item in this case. So in terms of grading and erosion control, it was recommended by the Department of Environment and Climate Change to have erosion and sedimentation controls that are maintained over time to ensure no impact on the wetlands or watercourse. An erosion control plan and no net runoff calculations can be a condition of the DA. So this development is planned to be phased. However, no phasing plan has been submitted at this time, so this can also be a condition of the DA. And there's no project time frame, so this would also be a condition of the DA. And lastly, just to look at environmental impact, I'm going to start first with wetlands and watercourses. Some proposed structures, parking areas, and stormwater management areas are located near or directly on portions of the identified wetland areas. There is potential for the wetlands to be impacted both during construction and post-development. The Department of Environment and Climate Change requires a wetland assessment since the buffer zone is less than 30 meters to demonstrate that ecological function will not be affected. The assessment must also include mitigation measures to ensure no impact on wetland hydrology and measures to restore or expand offset wetlands if the wetland functions become impaired. If any wetland alteration is involved, this will require approval from the Department of Environment and Climate Change. So this is a condition of the DA, along with the wetland assessment. And just to note, because the site is unzoned, there's no municipal setbacks for watercourses or wetlands to be met. And then for species at risk, so a desktop analysis using provincial mapping data was completed to assess the presence of species at risk on site. No species at risk habitat was identified through this desktop review. However, 2 black ash trees were observed on site through the wetland delineation process, which makes this a conditional item. And now moving on to public input. So on November 19th, 2025, we had a public information session at the Wildville Fire Hall where 20 residents attended. They shared a wide range of feedback. Roads and traffic was one of the main topics that was discussed at this event. Some concerns were shared about the potential for increased traffic volume on Upper Branch Road and the proximity of the proposed access road to Enterprise Drive. Some questions were raised about the potential to include additional access roads to mitigate potential traffic issues. Some talked about the one-way emergency access road that fronts Levi Hebb Road and shared concerns about the potential for it impacting evacuation routes for existing residents that live on that road. Some also questioned the width of the proposed main access road. There was some public feedback related to the proposed light industrial and commercial facility, with concerns over its unknown intended use and how it could potentially impact residents and the roads. Some felt that certain types of industrial uses should be limited in the DA. Some residents shared environmental-related concerns about deforestation, habitat loss, and wetland drainage issues on the site, with some asking for a remediation plan post-development. The public also spoke about water drainage issues and flooding. There were some concerns that the existing flooding issues in the area could be intensified from the development, particularly the flooding that occurs beneath the highway overpass. However, some also mentioned that existing water drainage issues could be improved with appropriate site design. It was also noted that one of the existing wetlands drains directly across the proposed access road. In terms of adjacent property owner feedback, one owner requested to have their existing property access be maintained with the addition of a curb cut, and they also requested to have a maximum buffer between their property and the development. Other adjacent property owners shared concerns about the proposed future right-of-way that would connect to Darius Weil Road and how it would impact their property. In regard to housing, some questions were raised about the cost of the new rental units and the need to accommodate housing for seniors. But there was also support for the development due to the additional housing opportunities that this would create. So in summary, the proposed cluster development plan for 475 Upper Branch Road in Wildville is supported by preliminary technical reports, external agency feedback, and public consultation. It also aligns with the provincial statement of interest on housing by helping to supply a range of housing options to Nova Scotians. The completion of the Level 2 groundwater assessment will be key in confirming the site's water capacity. This water assessment will need to be completed prior to bringing a recommendation to council and before entering into a development agreement. The other items can be conditions of the DA and can be addressed at future stages. So the recommendation is that the Planning Advisory Committee recommend that Municipal Council approve the proposed development agreement for a cluster development at 475 Upper Branch Road, subject to the development agreement conditions as identified in the staff report. And I just have one more slide, and then we can come back to this if you'd like. But just one more slide about the development agreement process. So right now, we're at number 5 there, highlighted in blue, where a PAC meeting is held. Once the Planning Advisory Committee makes a recommendation to council, and once we receive the pending water assessment to confirm water yield, a report would be prepared for council's approval. There will also be a public hearing to come and an appeal period. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Do any members of the committee have any comments for either Tim or Anna for clarification? Can I ask for Tim too? Or just
Tim's the owner.
Anna or Rob? Okay. Rob, okay. Does any members of the committee have any questions for clarification for Rob or Anna? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Can you tell me if the Nova Scotia Public Works have approved the site for the main entrance? Does it have site distance? Does it meet all their qualifications? And have they, in principle, approved that main entrance?
I don't believe it's been approved yet. That would come later during the permitting stages. Nothing was flagged during their review that indicated there might be an issue with them approving this, but official approval has not been received.
And so I would assume that for the emergency entrance on Levi Heb Road would be the same, pending?
Anything else, Councillor Bell?
I should just say, the transportation engineer in our office did make contact with the local Public Works and had a discussion about this and confirmed that. It's just in terms of how this kind of plays out is once we do have a development agreement, that would be conditional in the development agreement that approval is sought from the province for this. So that would be one of the conditions. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else want to ask a question? If not, then I have another.
Okay, I'll let Councillor Smith go.
I just have a question about the black ash. And so 2 trees were identified around the stream area. And I'm just wondering what happens, like there is a large amount of forest to be cleared as part of this development.
Yeah.
It's a threatened species, like what's the requirements around that species if more are discovered in the process of?
Yeah. So black ash is a culturally significant tree. It's identified by the Mi'kmaq for a number of uses. So Fraxinus nigra is the botanical name. What's provided is a 20-meter buffer from those so that those aren't impacted. If they did happen to find another one, we would have to identify it on site and work with the province to figure out how to deal with it. The wetland biologists they walked the entire site and they looked specifically for those, and those were the only 2 that they found. So, yeah, I think we're probably in pretty good shape.
Just curious, are those mature trees?
Yes, they are. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Yep. Now, there's lots of black ash in the province. It's just that it's culturally significant, and the ash trees in Nova Scotia are prone to the ash borer. So we're seeing a lot of green ash, white ash, and black ash being impacted. I'm not sure if it's down in the Bridgewater area yet, but it's really decimating quite a population in and around HRM and some areas of Truro. So.
Okay. Any other members of the committee have any questions for clarification? Go ahead, Mr. Drysdale.
Yeah, so I've got some questions regarding water. So we keep talking about units.
Yeah.
Water is used by people.
Yeah.
So when we talk about 96 units, how many people are you envisioning that are going to be in these 96 units? Because I'm assuming you've got some 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, et cetera.
Yep.
So kind of what's your vision of?
Yeah, so what happens is we've just completed the level 2 study that Anna referenced here. And we've certainly got enough water now with 30 to 35 gallons per minute. The engineers are just putting the final touches on that final study. And we're looking at it's usually about 2.2 people per unit is kind of the Nova Scotia average. So if we've got 140 units, we're somewhere around the 300 people mark, plus the highway commercial development. And those are usually done by the unit mix ratios. We're currently using a unit mix of about 50% 1 bedroom. I think it's 35% 2 bedroom and 15% 3 bedroom as the unit mix in those units. But that should still work out to somewhere around 300 people on the site. And plus the highway commercial development. So the engineers will be highlighting all of that in their level 2 report. And but the preliminary results that we got back from them on Friday is that there's certainly more water than they had anticipated in the 2 wells that were drilled about 2 weeks ago on site. So there's a good comfort level. Those wells will likely fill cisterns that are part of every building, so there's kind of a slow drainage into those cisterns, and then the cisterns are used. So you're not just drawing on the well at peak times.
Thank you. I have kind of a continuation
Sure.
to that. So we've got 300 people. we're gonna use, and we've got wells that'll support 30, 35 gallons a
Yeah.
minute. Okay. When you did your assessment, what was the water rate that was it based on? Because I was,
Yep.
from the documentation from Anna, is that the Atlantic Canada Water Supply Guidelines would recommend 450 liters per person
Per
per
person,
day.
yeah. So that's all in that level 2 report, and I'm probably not qualified enough to speak on that. If our able engineer was here tonight, he would be able to provide you with the pump rates and all that that they'll need, but they'll have to show that in the level 2 report. And as Anna mentioned, a DA is conditional on these things. So if you can't meet it, you don't get your building permit. So the development permit is phase 1 of a 2-stage process. It gives you the right to do things, but at the building permit stage, when you actually go to submit drawings, you have to prove that there's water and sewer capacity as part of the development agreement. Yeah.
And my last question in this area kind of goes back to the 300 people. I'm assuming a few of them will be children.
Yes, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yes.
In this development, which I think is it's a good use of the property, where's there a place for the kids to recreate?
So we're imagining that there's going to be amenity rooms in each one. That could again be conditional in the DA, that we note what the amenity requirements could be. In Halifax, East Hants, and around other areas, they typically look at a rate of 5 square meters per unit for amenity rooms. And those include outdoor decks or gardens or rooftop amenity spaces. But there could be, as part of the DA, we may want to identify a formal playground that might be part of the development.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other members of the committee before I go back to Councillor Bell? Gary?
Sure, I have a couple questions or comments as well, too. It seems, when I was reading it over, listening to the presentations, there seems to be a few inconsistencies in the reports. For example, the project scope, Anna had said was 96.
Yep.
But your report said it could be now up to 140.
Yep.
You talked about the groundwater assessment just being done now,
Yep.
with the report not quite ready yet. And Anna said that the development agreement is a contract, and any contract that I've ever been a part of has dates and timelines, and I don't see any dates and timelines when all these conditions are supposed to be done. So my question is, what is the benefit to either party to entering in a development agreement at this time with so many inconsistencies and unknowns?
Well, I'll give you a chronology of what happened. When we started the development, we had a hydrogeotech study, and that's where a hydrogeologist looks at the well yields from areas around without doing an actual well, drilling wells. Drilling one well is about $15,000, so there was 2 wells that were drilled on the site. And normally developers like to have some level of certainty before you go too far spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a project that it will be supported. So when we started the project with the hydrogeotech study, I think there was a comfort level using desktop analysis that there'd be enough for this highway commercial development and roughly 60 units. So, but the overall amount wouldn't be determined until the level 2 study was completed. So when we prepared the plans, we started off by proposing 96 units, but conditional on that level 2 study. But we also said that, and that was at 2 stories, but we said on the boards and through our reports that if it turned out through the level 2 study that there was additional capacity, we would be looking to go to 3 stories and up to 140 units. So that's where the inconsistency came in terms of the project chronology. And like I say, most developers will wait until there's a comfort level that they know that they're going to secure a development agreement before they spend $30,000 or $50,000 drilling wells on the site. I think after our last meetings with staff, we had a comfort level that there seemed to be comfort with staff on all of these issues. And so the developer went ahead about a month ago and commissioned the wells that were just completed. And luckily the water test came back with more water than we actually need for this development. So that last piece of the puzzle we'll be getting in the next week or so. And that should be just kind of perfect timing for council to weigh in on this in the new year. Yep.
Councillor Bell, did you have another comment for clarification?
I did.
Go ahead.
Thank you, and I do understand that as we go forward, there's a number of steps that need to be completed, but I am encouraged with the fact that there is a party that wants to build houses in the area. So if I asked a question, it's not that I'm against the project or anything. That would be farthest from the truth. My question is with regards to a rural cluster development that has a septic field,
Yeah.
a very large septic field, probably one of the largest that will have been built in MODL, that are not municipal owned. Into the future,
Yeah.
is this going to be the concept, a co-op development management agreement or a landlord management agreement?
Very good question, yes.
Okay, the reason I ask
Yes.
that is on some previous projects like this, the municipality ended up being the owner of a wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah.
And I want to try to avoid that,
Yeah.
but I want to encourage a business that wants to develop.
Yeah.
In fact, we just did very shortly in another
Yeah.
subdivision that's under development.
Yeah. So these types of developments, I'm working on conservation subdivision developments and HRM that are kind of upwards of 900 units in some areas. And the management of these facilities, the way it's structured in the province is this will be through a Bearland condominium. So the condominium association is responsible to manage that. So there's usually a homeowners association that's, but there's funds that are set aside from each homeowner in the homeowners association to manage that. So it'll be a condo corporation that has to manage water and sewage on the site. And that's fairly common now, and the province has a good comfort level with that model.
That's exactly the answer I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, oh, Councillor Smith, second time.
One more question around our land use planning and especially around rural residential zoning, that if we end up having a rural residential zone, this project would be rezoned, am I right? As rural residential when the land use planning, I'll just finish my train of thought. If that occurs, I just noting the community concern around what might be the light industrial tenant. Would that be affected? I'm just wondering how our land use plan, once it's finalized, will apply to this development.
Anna, can you answer that? Thank
Sure,
you.
yes. So in terms of the rural residential zone that we've talked about recently, we talked about some criteria that would apply. And with that criteria, there's 6 separate lots with an internal road. So in terms of this development, that wouldn't necessarily fit that criteria. At this point, we're still sort of fleshing that out as we write the second draft. But just based off of our initial conversations, that this development would not fit that criteria. So depending on what that property is zoned for, if we're thinking about a hamlet zone or a rural residential zone or the rural general zone, it would depend. It would sort of need to fit certain criteria. So in terms of that, it might be the rural general zone, which would be more lenient. And if the developer or whoever develops that industrial site, it will depend on timing and when the land use planning comes into place. But we could also write conditions in terms of timing. So if we needed to give a couple years ability to sort of grandfather that use in, there's an option there for that. But yeah, that can depend for sure.
So I should also say, it's not uncommon in most municipalities to have development agreements that are separate from the municipal plan. So while this municipality doesn't have full municipal planning and zoning currently in place, I think the intent is to do that over the next number of years. The development agreement will still identify the types of uses that are permitted and not permitted for that highway commercial use. So I think it'll be important in the development agreement to identify the types of uses that would be permitted and the types of uses that wouldn't. So we wouldn't have any intention of doing heavy industrial uses here, and that should all be in the development agreement. That'll give the community a level of comfort that they know what could happen there and what definitely will not happen there.
Okay, any more comment for clarification from the committee? Go ahead, Mr. Drysdale.
I'm going to go back to wetlands.
Yes.
Because I'm curious. I think in the presentation, it was basically the wetlands are going to stay at fundamentally as is,
Yep.
except for the one that's
To the
impacted by the emergency
Yep.
access. So in your plan, you can't see the boundaries of the wetlands, whereas in your, when you were meeting with the public,
Yep.
you had the wetland definition. Personally, I would find it very helpful to know kind of where the edge of the wetlands are relative to all of the
To the
other stuff that
proposed.
your development
Yeah.
is. One, I think it would help ensure folks knew that, yes, the wetlands aren't being
Yep.
destroyed. And then you can put things in, for me, it would be able to put it in better perspective, because I'm looking
Yeah.
at it and going, you've got a septic field right on top of a wetland.
Yeah.
Whereas in your presentation, we don't.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that might be quite
Good
helpful on a
point. I'll,
go-forward basis.
It's there on the plan, but it's very hard to see. So I'll make sure next time when we come back to council that it's, maybe I'll have an overlay that just shows it a little more clearly. There's just a little piece needed where that emergency access road goes that will need alteration. Normally, when you're doing these wetlands, you also put a 20-meter buffer around them, and so we're within the buffer area of one segment of that wetland. So that will need to go through a provincial wetland alteration in order to go within that 20-meter buffer. But the actual wetland itself isn't being touched. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Okay, so right now I am going to go to, is Tim public? Can he come up and speak before I ask for public?
Yes, I forgot to introduce
Yeah.
the actual owner of the property, Tim
Now that I got your
Ramey.
names right, I had you
I'm probably
make-
not going to get paid
Yeah.
for this now. But,
No, and, you know, let me give you a little bit of background. Really, this property has been in our family for about 100 years. So when I was a young boy, I live in the city, but I would come down and visit my grandfather and with my father, and we knew this land quite well. We would go fishing there, we would go hunting there, we would go cutting our Christmas trees there. So when this, all of a sudden, starting to see what's percolating in Bridgewater, an area in the municipality, got me to thinking, this is a beautiful piece of property. And, you know, in concert and cooperation with Rob and Fathom, we just said, what can we do here? And it wasn't something that was driven by sheer financial numbers. It was, what can we integrate into this community, knowing Bridgewater is growing and the municipality is growing. It needs accommodations. It needs places for people to live, but places to live, not just to put their heads in their beds. But that path network was actually one of the things I asked to go in there. So that, because that reminds me of when I was a little boy and I would go there with my grandfather and with my father, and we'd go hunting, we'd go fishing. And so that whole path network was something I asked to be a part of that and to work in as part of the whole nature part of the program itself. So this is a program also that we've looked at from the heart, and how do we integrate it into this great community. And so that, and if you look at how Rob and Fathom then integrated this into this beautiful piece of property, I think it is really a highlight and could be quite a place where it's not a place just for people to go live, but you'll see those path networks hopefully would be places where people from the community would be welcome to go for a walk. Your question about what would be there for the people. Well, not necessarily just something in the building, but there'd be a path network for younger people or older people. My father always said when he was a little boy, before he went and moved to the city, he'd go and hide and walk and go in there with his little gun or whatever and go and enjoy the nature. And I think that was the intent of this. And I believe they've done a really good job trying to integrate this into this lovely parcel of land. So,
Thank you, Tim. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the public to see if anyone wants to come forward, state their name, and have some public comment. Anybody wants to put the hand up to come up? Yes, come on up to the microphone and state your name, please.
Hi, my name is Irene Hurdle, and I live in adjacent farmland to this proposal. And I am sorry I wasn't there at the former meeting, but I was out of province, and so I wasn't able to be there. So I've been busy catching up. My question is, for one, well, I have many questions and many concerns, but my first one is, when we look at this proposal, and it's well done, I have to admit, and we're talking about 98 units, and now we're at that the water is allowing perhaps up to 140 units, was just under 50% increase. And I'm concerned about the sewer, because we have to have so much water for that many residents, but aren't we going to need more land for that, area of sewer? So is that plan going to accommodate that many more families if it goes up to 140 units? I know that's a provincial plan with sewers and those kind of things, but that's one of my concerns. And when they asked for the traffic study, was that at 98 units or 140 units? Like, I'm just wondering, now that we're looking at 140 units, are we still under the radar for some of these studies, or are we over the radar for them? My other concern too is when they talk about the proposed road and connecting to the Darius Wild Road, that would impact my farm. And my farm is agricultural. We have sheep and cattle and turkeys and chickens, and none of that's changing. And it's part of our heritage. It's been in our family since the early 1800s. And so there'll be no right of way. I don't understand how that could be suggested. So that's just, and then I've gone on to think about how this is going to impact our community and things like that too. So I just, maybe if they want to talk about this area here where the pathways are going to be, is that going to accommodate the almost 50% increase if we go up to 150 homes? Don't we need a lot more sewage, septic system area also? Has that been proposed, or?
Okay, Rob, you come up and.
Sure. No, thanks for the questions. When they designed the septic system, they imagined a worst-case scenario, so that's designed to accommodate the worst-case scenario, which we imagined would be around 150 units. So we will have to update the septic study. Similarly, with the traffic study, Roger used 100 units in his calculations, and we're wildly low on the requirements. We'll make sure that the traffic impact is updated to the 140 units. But you won't see, I spoke to him on the way here tonight, you won't see much of a change in the traffic impact. Was there another question?
Yeah. I know also for sewer going over a waterway,
yep,
that's really a a difficult thing, and how's that proposed to happen to not interfere with the waterway?
So what happens is down at the low point of the site, there'll be a storage tank, and I can't speak to this as well as the engineers. It is pumped up to the high point on the southwestern portion of the site to another cistern, and then it slowly drains through the site. And it's designed so that if there was a power outage for up to a week or more, there's enough storage in the lower area that it wouldn't have to be pumped up. And but then once power's back on, it pumps up to the high point, and then it gravity feeds down.
So just,
Yep.
because, so you're actually just gonna pump it
Yep.
through a pipeline
Yes,
over
that's
the
right.
water, or under the?
Under the water, yeah.
Under the water,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
I'll have to look in, I don't know that much about that. I'll have to
Yeah,
look
yeah.
into that more.
Yeah,
I have
sound
to meet
good.
some province about that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, because I am not prepared.
Could you please direct your questions
Oh, I'm sorry.
to
I said
me,
I-
and then
Oh,
I will
okay.
I'll ask Bob to speak. It's fine. It's
Sorry.
fine. It's
I
fine.
just, I'm not familiar, but I just know that sewer going through a waterway is troublesome, and was of interest too. And also because this water line that is the waterway, it impacts our brook that actually goes all the way through town and drains into the LaHave River. And we would just not want to see that contaminated, because our cattle drink from that and our grandkids swim in it. So we just want to, see what impact that will have on that waterway for sure.
Okay, so was that the final question that you had?
Well, for now, yes.
For now, okay. So I'm going to leave Rob come back, I'm going to ask you to take your seat, and I'm going to leave Rob come back up and finish answering your question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question and obviously a concern. The design of these facilities would have to meet the provincial Department of Environment regulations. So this isn't uncommon that you have to cross a stream with a facility like this. But it would have to be designed in such a way that it's able to be approved through the province.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Rob. Are there any more public comments? Anyone else want to come up and speak? And okay, go ahead, sir. Come up and state your name.
Brian Hurdle from the Wildville area. Two concerns is the sewer, and was there any attempt or to look into maybe hooking into the town sewer, which is so close? And the other thing is, this is not just, it's quite a investment, but it's also a big moneymaker. Has the company or the investors ever looked at maybe doing and putting a little back into the community? Thank you.
Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, sounds good. So, yeah, it would definitely be our preference if the modal and the town of Bridgewater could kind of work together but I'm working on well over 1,500 units in the town of Bridgewater that's all contingent on upgrades to their sewage treatment plant. At some point in the future, the land is relatively flat enough that we could, if the sewer services were extended here, we could certainly tie into that, and that would be our preference. But in terms of what the developer's giving back to the community, this just the housing, number one, lots of public green space that's being incorporated in the plan, but probably most importantly is the tax base. It's not uncommon for the municipality to get somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 per unit for this. So when you do the math, there's a lot of money coming to the municipality to pay for new services and municipal infrastructure over time. So.
And also the economic development of it, the economic spin-off.
Highway commercial.
Of to the businesses in the area. Okay. Anyone else from the public? Going once, going twice. All right. So, now what? Okay, does the committee have any other questions or comments? Go ahead.
Can we have the motion put back up on the screen that we're asked to
Yeah.
make a
We can
decision
do
on?
that, and Keith, you had another
Well,
comment? Oh,
once-
I'm sorry.
Once that's up, because I can't remember exactly what the wording was, then I have a question.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay, so my question is then, the executive summary of the report that we were given says for 96 residential units, and we're hearing that it's now put to possibly 140 units, but it doesn't speak to the number of units in the motion.
Who wants to take this? Anna?
I can answer that. So the idea is that we won't bring forward a report to council until we get the results of that level 2 assessment, which will confirm the units. So at the time when this recommendation was written, we still don't have those results in hand. So by giving a positive recommendation to this recommendation, it doesn't mean that the units are tied to that, but what we bring forward to council will be more concrete. So that will include the units in that.
Okay, good. Mr. Drysdale?
I think in the same vein, I'm finding there's so many variables here that aren't set. So I'm not sure what's going to council. I think the development as proposed looks great, but to me, there's too many variables to turn around and go back to council and say, please approve something, but we haven't seen what the final proposal is. Is it 96 units? Is it 140 units? So that's where my concern is I think they're going down the right path, but I don't think it's quite ready to go across the finish line.
Okay. Director of Planning, Jeff Merrill?
Yeah, I understand like the concern about, the number of units, and in Anna's report, it talked about, things that are pending. And the item in there is the water, and that's really the key part of that DA is the number of units will be driven by that water assessment report. So if it's 96 or if it's 140, if that report doesn't permit 140, then it will not be more than whatever's in that report. There are, like, some of the variables can be conditions of the DA, things like, the septic, like they need to have a functioning septic system. That system, at the end of the day, it's, what that system looks like it all has to be engineered and approved. So as long as it's engineered and approved, then like at this level at the committee wouldn't really be looking to, at that level of detail. But it would be a condition. So before council enters that or they put it in the DA, and then before the development happens, it's like, well, if you want to build, you need to meet these conditions. And one of those is you need to have a septic. You can only go to X number of units because of the water assessment. You need to have an engineer-approved storm water management plan. So like, as they get further along in their development and they get those plans, like those plans will come out, but it will be a condition. So the roadblock they will hit, that if they don't do those conditions, is you're not getting your building permit. So then you're kind of, they hit a wall. So it's kind of like a development agreement gives the municipality to have that extra oversight to make sure that those things are in place. And when council did the cluster development, like the largest thing that was looked at was like, are these large developments, is there enough water? Like, so developments like this elsewhere in the municipality, maybe not even to this scale, the residents were concerned about water and the impact on the pre-existing wells because not everybody was doing the water assessments. So the development agreement gives the municipality the ability to say, yeah, we'll approve your development, but we need to have this in place beforehand. And then here's some other things that it's like you can proceed and go along, but before you get your building permit, we want to make sure that the septic has been approved, the stormwater management has been approved, you know, your traffic entranceway has been approved by all those authorities. So I do realize that in this development agreement, more so than some of the other development agreements that we have had in the past, it does have a lot more conditions. That's the nature of, I think it's the nature of the cluster development agreement, where it's like, you can go forward, this is what's important, and then these are things that can be conditional, so as you get further along, you can spend the money down the road, but our trigger is until you prove that you have that in place, you're not getting the building permit, so you can't go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask that the motion be put on, you haven't, a supplement? Okay, go ahead.
I concur with everything you've said, but for me, there's still some missings. Water at what rate? So in the documents that we were presented, it was 240 liters per person, but the recommendation is that it's 450. So in the conditions that you're proposing, what numbers might you use? Also in the septic, at 140, at 96, we know for sure we're not touching the wetlands. At 140 units, might we be touching the wetlands? I would have a different response or concern depending on those answers. So that's kind of where my head was going, is that the information's been gathered, it just hasn't been analyzed and presented to us. So I'm not asking them to do more work, it's just kind of consolidate what's been done so that we can, less variables to deal with, that's all.
Okay, Rob, do you want to come up?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of conditional zoning is that it does provide those safeguards to the municipality. And when you look at kind of the MGA and how you guys as a planning advisory committee is set up, this is, we've done some homework to get to here. This is kind of a first step. And what we've presented is an overall concept. Do you feel comfortable with a 90 to 140 unit development? This is stage one. So stage one is, if you approve this tonight to move to the next stage, we can, within about a week's time, have all of this buttoned up so that when you go to first reading of council, we'll have all of this stuff definitive. All the reports will be updated. We'll have all the information that you need. And then there's a second reading as well and a public hearing. So this is one stage out of 4 pieces where you get to weigh in. And I think we're just asking for the opportunity to get to that next stage where we'll have this all ready and buttoned up for you.
Okay. Yes, I'm very lenient.
So if we held this in January instead of in December, this conversation wouldn't have been occurring.
I'm not quite sure what you mean by that.
All the information that I'm talking about would have already been consolidated. They've already would have done their work, and we could proceed with a tighter analysis of what we're doing our approval on. One meeting later.
Who wants to take this? We just take it as information. Okay, thank you. Member at large, Mailman.
Thank you, and I kind of am echoing what Mr. Drysdale said, and I'm not opposed to development, and I think it's a great idea as well too. And tonight, if this motion said for a 96 unit development, I probably would be leaning on the side of saying yes, but where it could be 140 and we don't have the septic people here, which is a concern as well too. I don't like how the wording of the recommendation is as of right now, and I probably would be voting no because just of the wording of the recommendation.
Councillor Smith.
I say this realizing I'm new to the committee, but I do feel like the conditions are very clearly mapped out.
Did you say are?
Are very
yes.
clearly
Okay, thank you.
mapped out. And it's been very clearly explained why the change to 140 units. So I feel confident in supporting the motion when we put it on the floor and moving ahead with this, knowing that you know, the septic system, for example, that needs to be approved by Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change. That's not really our oversight, but it's conditional with the development agreement. It's just, we're looking at the overall plan, seeing how it matches up with the MPS. And I think if the conditions are met, you know, it's going to be, it looks like a very solid project, brings much needed housing to the area, and there's other steps in this process. So
Yeah.
I'd be happy to see it move forward from this table.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is ask for you to put the motion on the floor, and then we can have more conversation.
Can I just have one thing for clarification?
Sure.
Is the plan, the conditions that are listed in the report based on 96 units or the conditions based on 140 units? Because the executive summary says 96.
Anna?
So the application that the municipality received was for 96 units. So when we sent the application content, so all of the studies that had been completed to the external agencies, for the most part, it was based on 96 units. The planner's analysis and review was based on 96. But there was some, with the reports that were submitted, there was one that confirmed 56 units. So for the most part, the application was for 96, not 140, just to clarify. Yeah.
Tim?
If I could add, the intent all along, as you know, as you go through these stages, and we did the phase 1, the phase 2 was actually delayed by 2 weeks by the drilling company, and it was just completed last week. And the engineer had said the amount of water that came out of those 2 drilling tests was incredibly significant and would more than support the higher end of what was originally put. Because in the beginning and all along, we did say if the testing comes through, we'd like to progress with the higher end of the target, which is around 140, 150 units. And so as it relates to all the other conditions, as it relates to, I can assure you, as someone that's behind this project, there's a lot of safeguards there. A lot of safeguards, and there would be no reason for me to progress continuing to spend money until those safeguards are being met. There's the municipality has full protection here. So, and as I say, it seems to be the biggest concern here is the water. The water, as it relates to the engineer, came back, he will complete his test, but there was a 2-week delay. And unfortunately, as you know, these meetings are set at minimum a month in advance. This meeting was set, the drilling company delayed the drilling. That's why it's not fully complete at this point in time. So I'd just like to add that as extra narrative to say that the conditions are there, but the water test will be completed. And I think we'll show that will be more than adequate. As it relates to the septic component, I think we all know the Department of Environment have very strict controls and rules as it relates to what you can and can't do.
Thank you, Tim. Councillor Smith, would you like to put the motion on the floor?
To Chair Councillor Moore and members of the Planning Advisory Committee, I move that the Planning Advisory Committee recommend that Municipal Council approve the proposed development agreement for a cluster development at 475 Upper Branch Road, PID 0303724 and PID 603033781, subject to the development agreement conditions as identified in the staff report.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Member at Large Mailman.
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion.
Yes?
I propose the motion as is, except that approve the proposed development agreement for cluster development of 96 units at 475 Upper Ranch Road. Everything else say just put the words of 96 units, and if it comes back that they can do more, then they can ask.
Do I need a seconder for the amendment? Okay. Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Do I have a seconder for the amendment? No. So the amendment has failed. Back to the original motion. Councillor Bell?
May I comment on the original motion?
Yes.
I understand the hesitancy by some individuals on what they see here, but I am offered confidence in knowing that even if this motion is passed, this is the lowest of the hurdles that need to be passed. First of all, it's got to get past our own development officer, and she has to be confident that she meets the requirements of the Nova Scotia Department of Environment and the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works, which are two key aspects as we move forward in this development. So I feel confident that this motion will address what Mr. Drysdale has a concern about, and also Mr. Mailman. While I do understand that the original plan was based on a lower number of units, we understand that there's a process going forward to get a higher number to be approved, but that's still contingent upon Department of Environment. So I understand that they have been very strict in other cases that they've dealt with here. So I am confident that that this will still meet our needs, and it will come back to this committee again for final approval. So I will be voting in favor of it.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to ask. Did you want to speak again? I'm soon going to ask for the question because I think we've gone around enough. I am very lenient, but I'm also very not lenient sometimes.
So this would be a question I think I'm going to direct potentially to Anna. In the conditions on the water, what rate are you going to use in your analysis? The 240, the 450?
Go ahead, Anna.
So that analysis is not a staff analysis. That was completed by the Department of Environment and Climate Change, I believe. And part of the level 1 groundwater study is a desktop analysis, where the level 2 study is on the ground and actually drilling wells. So once that level 2 study comes back, those results are going to be based on the site and are going to be telling a story of what the capacity of that exact site is, versus the level 1 study was just sort of a preliminary desktop analysis to sort of see the potential as to what the site capacity is. So like you flagged that the numbers are a little bit off there, which the department did flag, but that shouldn't cross over into the results of the level 2 study, because that's going to be based on actual wells and pulling up water. So it's just a bit different. I don't know if Jeff has anything to add to that.
Planner, Mr. Merrill?
Yeah, I'll just add, so anytime, like when we get a development agreement, we send out to external agencies asking for their comment, right? So we've sent it out to environment and it had the 96 units. When we have that level 2 assessment, like municipal staff aren't qualified to comment on that, like the details of that report. So what we do is we send that back to environment for their comment. Same with the transportation. So now that if it comes back that it's more than the 96 units and it's 140 units, we would go back to Public Works and say, you know, I know you comment last time it was only 96 units, now it's this. You know, does that change any of your comments? So it gives them the opportunity to say, well, actually now it's over a certain threshold and this is now required, or it still doesn't have, you know, we still don't have any additional comments. So we do have, you know, when we get out those reports is to send them out to those external agencies who are, like, those are the authorities, right? Like environment for the wells and for traffic is the Nova Scotia Public Works.
Okay, anything else? No. All right, so I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Opposed is Member at Large Drysdale and Member at Large Mailman. Motion has carried. Thank you. And now we have got nothing else, no in camera. Next meeting date, January 22nd, 2026. And can I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Member at Large Drysdale and Councillor Smith. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody. Safe drives.
Thank you.
I'm joking, yeah. Me and Pat must be about the same age, I think. We are. I'm 72. Oh, you better walk on big. You better walk on big. I knew big ones. I think you were back. Well, we went to Walden Store. And your sister, we had Sister Martha, right? We had kids all in the so she so you still live up in the home area? Yeah. Yeah. You still go there?